right now it's Houston, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, I got to give love to my man Vincent Goodwill for Yahoo, because that's my little brother right there, and he was talking about this story from a late date to more than a year ago, year and a half ago, of course. And I also want to give props to James Haren, because listen, you don't have to answer every question if you don't want to, but he showed up there yesterday. He was right in front of the media, and he just said, hey, you know what? I'm not going to get into trade speculation and all of that other stuff. He's basically saying, listen, I'm here until I'm not. Here's why I'm going to tell you the Houston Rockets look worse at this particular moment in time. With Daryl Morey being gone, with Mike D'Antoni being gone, one could easily surmise that the culture that exists within the Houston Rockets that we're all lamenting was primarily their fault, because they allowed it to take place. And that's really what this comes down to. If they were still there and that's just the way that they do business, then we can look at James Haren and we could say, why would you be taking advantage of these perks? Why would you be exercising your power in that way? And to some degree, we still could say that. But the only reason why I say the Rockets primarily instead of James Haren is that if this is the culture that you allowed, you're a superstar, you bring stuff to the table. We missed the playoffs the previous 3 years before you arrived. We've been in the playoffs ever since. We've been championship contenders. We've been to the conference finals twice. You're a 3-time scoring champion. You're a league MVP. And not only that, minutes played, playing through injuries, games played, etc. He's right up there with the best of them. So if you take all of those things into consideration, no one can accuse him for not doing his job. And if everybody wants to complain about the culture, well, who's responsible for the culture ultimately? It certainly isn't the player. You can make a contribution to it. It would be good for you to exercise that level of professionalism. But in the end, the actual onus of the culture is on the franchise itself. They allowed it. And they knew that it could potentially alienate other folks, and evidently didn't care enough to reel that in. And that's why I say, as these stories unfold, even though people want to take their shots at James Haren, ultimately you're going to look at the Houston Rockets, not the present Houston Rockets, the previous regime. Morey was there. Mike D'Antoni was there. Hell, they were there before Tillman Fertitta got there, for crying out loud. And he's the owner of the franchise right now. So we got to look at it that way.
The Rockets look worse than James Haren right now. First of all, this is how business is done in the NBA. The owners have a monopoly, de facto monopoly, and so they have huge leverage in the CBA negotiations, right? They get a lot their way. But the other side of that is if you're a superstar, you got a lot of clout, and you can force the hand of a lot of teams. Because the fact is, it's almost impossible to win a championship without at least one superstar. Superstar, not an all-star, superstar. And Harden's a superstar. Who looks worse right now? Guys, it's the Rockets, because let's not forget, Tillman Fertitta really, and he told us about this on First Take, and Stephen A., we've discussed it many times, not good enough, right? What Morey and D'Antoni were doing were not good enough. Wasn't good enough. You wanted to win a championship. And so D'Antoni was a lame duck coach. What's he going to really do as a lame duck coach? Let's see you perform or else. What Tillman Fertitta, I don't think, understood, and I think what most people still don't understand, the Rockets should have never been as close to a championship as they were. That was because of Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni having the courage of their convictions to play a kind of basketball that would be criticized. Only the most efficient shots taken, right? Either you get an extra point for them or it's a really high percentage shot. That's the way they were going to play. They'd be criticized. They're not playing defense enough. They need to move the ball more, mid-range shots, all this kind of stuff. Meantime, because of the way they played, they took a Warriors team fully loaded with KD and Steph and Clay and Dre and everybody, 7 games. And they had a home game against that team, right? You could say, well, really, who else was in the West? How about the Cavs in the East? Because the Cavs got swept. Cavs got swept. LeBron and Kevin Love got swept against that Golden State Warriors team that was almost beaten by the Rockets, right? So, Fertitta, that's not good enough. Daryl Morey's gone. D'Antoni's gone. Now all hell breaks loose. This is what happens. You got rid of people. You thought you'd replace them with better people. It's not trending in that direction. Who looks worse right now? And now your superstar wants out, and this is what's become of it? Clearly, Harden's like, look, I'm not cooperating with you. You got to make this move. And the Rockets are saying, no, we're not going to make it right now. Is this all in the service of winning a championship? Because that's why you get rid of Morey and D'Antoni. Seems to be backfiring. Harden's going to wind up in a position where he'll have a chance to win a championship. The Rockets will not.
Well, I have to respectfully disagree with the both of you, and here's why. Right now, to me, the Rockets in my opinion, are moving in the right direction. They just hired a young stud in Steven Silas, who is well respected around the league, not by just front offices or other coaches, but by current players, former players. They have nothing but high praise for him and says that how he's a student of the game, an offensive genius, and it's about time that he got his opportunity. So I think the Rockets did a great job by hiring Steven Silas. Second of all, with them trading Russell Westbrook, who didn't want to be there because of the lack of accountability that they were having in the Rockets organization, especially when it came down to James Harden and all the other players and all the other rumors that are coming out about James Harden not taking winning seriously, not wanting to adjust and to giving up the club life. Right now, James Harden looks the worst. And here's why. You don't show up to camp. Then when you do show up to camp, you show up to camp late. And then when you do show up, you show up out of shape. And this is what I was trying to tell you and Max, Stephen A., when I was trying to have virtual school about a couple of shows ago, and I told y'all that James Harden has to go out on the court and perform at an MVP type level, because guess what? Guess what the rumors are circling now around the front offices of organizations and what GMs are talking about that probably had interest in acquiring James Harden. They're saying, should I give up a young star and my assets for James Harden, who might come in and tear down the culture, who might complain because he might not get things, or might just shut down because things might not go his way, or might be a bad example on the younger guys that's already here? We don't want that. So with that being said, it's on James Harden, because the Rockets, in my opinion, you get back John Wall, who's happy to be in Houston. You get back a first-round pick. You getting all these assets, and the Rockets still, right now, are a playoff team in the Western Conference. So a lot of this is on James Harden, and James Harden looks worse, not the Rockets.
Well, I don't agree with you that he looks worse. I don't disagree. Hold on, Max. I don't disagree with any of the points that you're making. A matter of fact, Kendrick Perkins, I had a brother call me the other day and say that James Harden made a mistake by not signing, or rather it would have been better if James Harden had signed for the $50 million extension, because that would have given him 4 years under contract instead of 2. And that brother that called me was you. So you make a very valid point, and you're right about that. What I'm saying to you, however, is this. If you look at the Houston Rockets, because of the culture that they allowed, that's the reason I'm pointing out how that is a problem for the Houston Rockets right now, looking worse, because people are looking at them. And it's not just James Harden, but you're also looking at them under the regime of Daryl Morey and said, is this what you allowed to transpire? I mean, you're catering to your stars to that degree? And it's a star that may not be putting forth the due diligence in terms of rallying the troops, galvanizing the troops, because I don't think anybody could question Jay at a high level. I don't think anybody could question that about him. He shows up every night, and he's the real deal. We know that about him. But the flip side is that when you're the leader in the face of a franchise, you got to do a little bit more than that in order to galvanize the troops around you. And part of the reason that might have gotten in the way is the Houston Rockets.
This is why Harden actually doesn't look worse. If you look, wait. This is why Harden doesn't actually look worse, guys, because everyone knows this is the superstar's leverage. If he's a malcontent, if he doesn't want to be there, he's going to be unhappy. And what happens is the rest of the league knows that's a distressed asset. Perk, even if you're right, and to some Harden looks worse, in fact, what that's going to do is further devalue him in a trade, making it easier to get to where he wants to go. Because they're not going to keep a disgruntled player all year. They just won't. They won't do well as a team if they do that. And so, you know who's smiling right now? You know who's sitting there smiling? Daryl Morey. If what you're saying is true, Daryl Morey is sitting back laughing, going, oh, okay, no one wants him? Bet. Okay, here's our offer. Great. Come on, James Harden. Join Embiid and Simmons. Daryl Morey is laughing right now if what you're saying is true.
Oh, you think that's just how it happened to Max? Let me tell you something. I talked to 3 general managers over the last 3 days, and they all had the same question about James Harden. Would I be crazy to trade for him and give up this person or give up this person or give up these assets and bring him to this organization knowing what he brings off the court, asking me questions about him? This is not something that I'm making up, Max Kellerman. I'm telling you something that I know. I'm telling you something that I know. So turn your video on your laptop and listen to me as I'm teaching you and schooling you about what's going on. And what's happening right now is the front offices are looking at Dennis Rodman, looking at James Harden like the modern day Dennis Rodman. He wants to be the rock star. And look, Dennis Rodman was a rock star, but at least he showed up to work and was in shape. And what I'm trying to tell you is that teams are now second guessing. Teams are now second guessing themselves, Max, on whether or not to take a chance on James Harden and give up a young star.
What that means is, basketball professor, let me introduce you to an economic theory, okay? Supply and demand. If the demand is down, right, there's less demand for Harden, then his price falls, making it easier for him to get to where he wants to go. Meaning the longer this drags on, the less the Rockets are likely to get for him, putting more pressure on them to deal him now.
Max, again, the Rockets do not have to trade James Harden. He still has 2 years left on his deal. Do you not realize that the Rockets are not just going to give up James Harden? They're showing us that right now. This is the reason that James Harden is on the Houston Rockets today, because they're not just going to take anything, Max. So what are you talking about?
Still.
Well, let me say this. Let me chime in here.
They will not be able to keep him all year.
Hold on, Max. First of all, Kendrick Perkins is absolutely right. This is exactly what GMs are saying. They're asking these questions about James Harden as we speak. He's absolutely, positively right, because I've spoken to a few myself. That's exactly what they're saying. That's number one. Number two, there's no way that the market for James Harden is going to lower, that the Houston Rockets is just going to say, okay, he's so much of a malcontent and he doesn't want to be here so desperately, and the market's going to dry out. So as a result, you know what? We're going to give less. We're going to take less just to get rid of him. People are going to try that. Executives are going to try to pull that okey doke. It will not work. They're going to have to give up a tremendous asset, if not several, in order to get the likes of James Harden. There is no way around that, because he's so significant to their franchise that if they lose him and they don't get some kind of equitable compensation in return, they know that they're done for years to come. That's the situation right now.
But think of what you're saying. First of all, they've already lost him. This is the power that an NBA superstar has. Stephen A., you're right. There will be a very good package for James Harden under any circumstances. But if what Kendrick Perkins is saying is true, and of course it's true, or he wouldn't say it on TV, right? Of course, I understand what you're saying is true. The fewer GMs want James Harden necessarily means his trade value goes down. The more buyers, the higher the price. The fewer buyers, the lower the price. So whatever package you're talking about, Stephen A., gets weaker as time goes on if more and more GMs feel the way the three that KP spoke to feel. That's my point. That's why it's in the best interest of the Rockets to trade him sooner than later, because the value ain't going up.
Max, that didn't make no damn sense at all. That's why if you're the Rockets, you hold on to him, because you have him for 2 years and you don't just have to accept anything. And by the way, James Harden, let me tell you something. One thing I do know about James Harden is a hooper. So once he get in between those lines, he's going to hoop. You watched the preseason game. He was engaged. He was out there cheering on his teammates. He was out there cheering on his teammates, interacting with his teammates, figuring out things on the defensive end. So, Max, to your point, you keep saying that it's in the Rockets' best interest just to trade him and take whatever. No, it's not. It's in their best interest to do exactly what they're doing right now and saying, you know what? We're going to start the season with James Harden wearing a Houston Rockets jersey.
You think they're going to finish it that way?
No, they're probably
I didn't
not going
say
to
that,
finish it
Max.
that way, but
I'm
that
telling
doesn't mean
you-
they're going to give them. They're not going to give them away for a box of cookies. They're not going to fold like that. They can't afford to fold like that. Could you imagine what will happen to the Houston Rockets franchise if you give away the league's leading scorer over the last 3 years, a league MVP, a brother that's averaged over 30 the last 3 years for nothing? Could you imagine
it's
what's
not gonna
going to
be for a box
happen
of
to their
cookies. You're right.
franchise? They know this. They know this, and James knows this. James knows it, and James Harden, in his heart of hearts, he knows he made a mistake by letting it get out that he wanted to go to one particular team. He should have just said, I want out. But when you highlight a specific team, what happens is that really makes it that much tougher for Houston to make a deal, which is part of the reason why he's still there.
Stephen A., is Daryl Morey happier or sadder this morning based on the latest news? You think Daryl Morey's sitting there a little sadder or a little happier today? Because that'll tell you a lot of what you need to know. The GMs who want to make a move on Harden are happier today than they were a couple days ago.
Harden has 2 years, $86 million left on his contract. Guys, we got to leave it there. Perk will be back with us in just a bit. Sorry, guys, got to keep it moving here. Lots of first take on the way, including LeBron and AD in action for the first time last night. The guys will let us know if they're worried about a potential slow start to the regular season. Plenty more to come. Stay here.